Okay, so, like, if you're listening to this, you probably want to know what's next for Mongolia.
Right. I would imagine so.
Well, get this. The new government just released its 4-year plan, and it is ambitious, to say the least.
Definitely ambitious.
We're talking full-on transformation blueprint style.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's called the Action Plan of the Government of Mongolia for 2024-2028.
Straight from the source.
And we are here to break it all down for you in this deep dive.
Dive deep. We will.
So listeners, get ready because we are about to unpack a whole lot of goals.
We're talking goals on goals on goals.
All right, so I got to say, just skimming this thing, I can already tell this new government is not messing around.
No, they are not.
This document, it's basically a mission statement.
No, absolutely.
It just screams, we are here to make our mark.
It really does.
So what do you say we just jump right in?
Let's dive in.
What are we seeing here? What are the big themes that stand out in this action plan?
Well, first and foremost, you can practically feel them saying, forget the political games. This is about Mongolia.
Oh, wow.
That's the overarching message here.
Wow.
They even come right out and say, national unity is the solid foundation of the Mongolian state and the source of our development.
Wow. Talk about setting the tone. So it's all about putting the country first.
100%.
But are they ripping up the rule book or building on what's already there?
It's more like they're hitting fast forward on existing strategies.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Remember Vision 2050 and the new revival policy.
Right.
This new plan takes those long-term goals and injects a shot of let's get this done NW energy.
Ah, so urgency is the name of the game.
Urgency is the name of the game.
And I'm guessing with 3 different parties in this coalition, the Mongolian People's Party, the Democratic Party, and the People's Party, we've got a real mix of approaches in this plan.
You got it.
It's like the political melting pot in here.
Absolutely. It's like they took the best ideas from each party's platform, social innovation, regional development, fighting corruption, you name it, and threw them into a giant policy blender.
Sounds about right.
And get this, they've organized it all into 4 main policy areas with a whopping 620 specific objectives.
620. Okay, so we are definitely going to need to break this down.
Oh, I have got our work cut out for us.
But before we get lost in the weeds, there's one thing that really jumped out at me.
Okay, what's that?
This whole idea of carving Mongolia into distinct economic zones.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're saying, let's play to each region's strengths.
It's all about specialization.
It's exactly. Specialization on a massive scale.
Exactly.
They've identified 6 zones each with its own unique focus. So, like, if I wanted to visit a place known for traditional livestock and booming urban centers, I'd go to.
The Hongai region.
Of course.
Yeah.
The Hongai region.
That's their jam.
But if I'm more interested in the energy sector or exploring stunning natural landscapes, the West is calling my name.
The West is the place to be for that.
See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure for investors and tourists alike.
I like that analogy.
What about up north? What's their specialty?
They're also leaning into tourism, but with an industrial twist.
That's interesting. So a little bit of everything up north.
They're diversifying.
And then there's the Gobi, which they envision as a hub for industry and green energy.
Exactly. The Gobi is going green.
And I can't forget about the central region.
Oh, yes. The heartland.
What's going on there?
They're going for a more balanced approach, focusing on both agriculture and industry.
Makes sense.
A little bit of everything to keep things stable.
And last but not least, you've got the East, steeped in history and primed to become a haven for historical tourism and intensive agriculture.
They're really playing up their strengths over there.
Okay, so we've got our 6 zones each with its own economic flavor.
6 distinct flavors of Mongolia.
On the surface, it sounds pretty cool.
It's definitely an interesting strategy.
But I'm curious, what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of this kind of laser-focused regional development strategy?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, on the one hand, you've got the potential for some serious economic growth. Like if you concentrate resources and expertise in specific regions, you could see some really impressive results.
So some regions could really take off.
Oh, absolutely. We could be talking about a surge in new jobs, local economies booming, even these regions becoming global players in their niche.
It's like each zone becomes a mini Mongolia, but hyper-specialized.
Exactly. But that's also where the risk comes in.
Oh, how so?
Well, what happens if one of these hyper-specialized zones hits a rough patch?
Oh, I see, like all your eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Exactly. Let's say there's a global downturn in tourism.
Right.
That could spell trouble for the West and the North.
That's true.
And then there's the potential for widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Ah, yeah. Some regions booming while others lag behind.
It's a classic trade-off. More focused growth, but with higher stakes.
It makes you think about those folks on the ground living in these zones.
Right?
How might this impact their day-to-day lives?
It's hard to say for sure, but imagine living in the Gobi and suddenly you're witnessing the rise of this massive green energy sector.
Wow, yeah.
Maybe there are new job opportunities, the infrastructure gets upgraded, even the local culture starts to shift as new people with new skills and perspectives move in.
Whoa, that's huge. You're talking about potential cultural shifts alongside economic ones.
Absolutely. It's about more than just money. It's about reshaping entire regions.
And speaking of big changes,
Yeah.
we have to talk about these 14 mega projects.
The mega projects?
This is where the government's ambition really goes into overdrive.
They basically said, hold our air rag, we're going big.
They are not messing around.
No, they are not. We're talking railways, power plants, pipelines. They even want to launch a Mongolian satellite into space.
Hold on, are you serious? A Mongolian satellite?
You better believe it.
Okay, we need to unpack this. What's the deal with these mega projects? What are they trying to achieve?
It's about transforming Mongolia, not just tinkering around the edges, but a complete overhaul.
A complete transformation.
They're a landlocked country, heavily reliant on imports facing environmental challenges.
Right.
These mega projects are designed to tackle all of that head-on.
So they're swinging for the fences.
Big time.
Let's dive into the specifics.
Yeah.
What are some of the most attention-grabbing projects in this lineup?
Well, let's start with the railways. They're planning new lines and terminals at border crossings, aiming to double their export capacity.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Imagine what that could do for a landlocked country like Mongolia, opening up access to global markets, boosting trade.
It's like they're busting open the doors to the global marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And what about this whole energy independence thing? They're going all in on new power plants, right?
Oh, yeah. Coal, hydro, solar, wind, the whole shebang.
Wow, that's a lot to juggle.
The goal is to become less reliant on energy imports, which is crucial for their climate and their growing energy needs. Of course, the big question mark is the environmental impact, especially with the continued reliance on coal.
Right. It's a trade-off they're clearly grappling with. Speaking of sustainability, I saw they're also tackling water security head-on with these mega pipelines. Tell me more about that.
Water is essential, especially with desertification becoming a bigger problem.
Yeah.
These pipelines could be game changers. Imagine being able to ensure a stable water supply, not just for drinking water, but for agriculture, for keeping the land healthy. It's a massive undertaking, but with potentially huge rewards.
It sounds like it could make a real difference.
It could be huge.
Okay, now for the project that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, the uranium project, I read that they're partnering with France on this and aiming to put Mongolia on the map as a major uranium exporter.
It's certainly ambitious.
Yeah.
And potentially lucrative. But, the uranium industry always comes with its own set of risks and ethical baggage.
We could do a whole other deep dive on just the uranium debate.
Yeah.
But for now, let's move on to these coal and copper processing plants they're planning.
This is all about moving up the value chain. Instead of just shipping out raw materials, they want to process them domestically, create more jobs, keep more of the profits within Mongolia.
It's like they're saying, hey, world, we're not just sitting on this stuff. We're going to make it work for us.
Exactly. Though, of course, we can't ignore the potential environmental impact of heavy industry.
For sure. It's always a balancing act.
Always.
Now, what about this oil refinery they're proposing? Didn't you say Mongolia is heavily reliant on imported fuel?
Yeah, they are. Which is why this refinery is such a big deal if they can actually pull it off.
Right.
It could be a major step towards energy independence.
Talk about a game changer.
Huge implications for their economy.
Okay, so I've saved the most mind-blowing project for last. They actually want to launch a Mongolian satellite. I mean, come on, a satellite.
Into orbit. Yeah, it's a bold move.
That's next level.
It really is.
So it's not just for bragging rights. I mean, I'm sure there's an element of national pride.
Of course. But their stated goal is actually quite practical.
Okay, what is it?
To improve internet access across this vast and often remote country.
Ah, so it's about connecting the unconnected.
Exactly. Think about the possibilities if they manage to pull this off. Connecting remote communities, revolutionizing education and healthcare, opening up all sorts of opportunities for businesses.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is,
Yeah.
But it's a powerful statement about their commitment to progress.
I can already see those headlines now. Mongolia, from nomads to space explorers.
Why not? Dream big, right?
Right. But In all seriousness, this whole plan from regional specialization to these mega projects, it's incredibly ambitious,
Yeah, no
even
kidding.
a little overwhelming.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure.
It makes you wonder, are we getting carried away here?
It's easy to get swept up in the excitement.
It is.
Hmm.
Is this all just pie in the sky, or do you think they can actually pull this off?
That is the million-dollar question. And honestly, it's too early to say.
Fair enough.
It's going to take a monumental effort.
What do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle for them?
Resources, they'll need massive amounts of funding, skilled labor, materials, you name it.
And not to mention the potential for things to go wrong.
Oh, yeah. With projects of this scale, there are always unexpected challenges.
Always. So many moving parts.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what happens if they have to start prioritizing,
Tough choices, for sure.
right? Because we haven't even touched on their plans for social welfare programs. Remember that whole thing about creating a prosperous, educated, healthy Mongolian people?
Right, right. A very ambitious goal.
It is. But can they really go all in on both economic development and the social welfare at the same time?
That's the tightrope they're walking, trying to balance these huge infrastructure projects with major investments in social programs.
It's a tough balancing act.
It really is. They're talking about affordable housing, improved healthcare education reform.
It's a lot.
It is. And it's unclear how they'll manage it all with the resources they have.
So many questions.
So many questions. But you know what? That's what makes this so fascinating.
It does.
We get to watch this grand experiment unfold.
Exactly. And whether they succeed or stumble, Mongolia is going to be a fascinating case study in ambitious nation building.
Absolutely.
Well said. So there you have it, listeners. Mongolia's grand plan for the future,
Hold on to your hats, folks.
because it's going to be a wild ride.
Buckle up. The next 4 years are going to be interesting.
That's an understatement. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Mongolia's future.
Anytime. Always happy to talk Mongolia.
Until next time, stay curious.